Hi Pre-K, it's Miss Clark. I wanted to read you one of our favorite books in the Gummy Bears classroom, DinoFours. This book is called DinoFours, My Seed Won't Grow. And it's by one of our favorite authors, Steve Metzger, and illustrated by Hans Wilhelm. It was spring. Mrs. D gathered the children around the science table. "We're going to plant green bean seeds today," she said. "What do you think these seeds need to grow?" "Dirt from the plant store," Danielle said. "Yes," said Mrs. D. "It's also called soil. Anything else?" "Water," Joshua added. "Sunshine, too," said Tracy. My, said Mrs. D. "You know a lot about seeds. Now, how do you think they'll change?" She's got all of the beans right there, the seeds. "Maybe they'll grow into a tall beanstalk like the one in Jack and the Beanstalk," Albert said. "That's a scary story with a giant." "I really don't think that will happen," said Mrs. D. "Any other ideas?" "These are green bean seeds," said Tara, "so they'll grow into green bean plants." "Let's plant the seeds now," Brendan said excitedly. "I can't wait to see mine grow. They'll be the biggest in the whole class." "No, they won't," said Tara. "Yes, they will," said Brendan. "You'll see." "All right, children," said Mrs. D. "Let's begin." So they've got their cups, and they're talking about whose are going to be the biggest when they start to grow. Mrs. D gave each child 3 green bean seeds, some soil, a small container for planting, a spoon, and a measuring cup with water in it. The children planted the seeds and watered them. Then Mrs. D passed out craft sticks with their names on them to put in their containers. "It's time to pick your next activity," Mrs. D announced. Then all the children left the table, except Brendan. So there they all are planting their seeds, making sure they're ready to grow. "I think I'll sit here and watch my seeds grow into plants," he said. Then Brendan sang this song. "My seeds will grow and grow and grow, so very big and tall. They'll grow and grow until they are the biggest plants of all." "Brendan, it takes a while for seeds to grow," Mrs. D said. "Okay," Brendan said as he walked away, "but I'll be back to check on them later." He's so excited for his seeds to grow. For the next few days, Brendan was the first child to arrive at school. He ran right to the windowsill where the seed containers were placed. It was always the same. Nothing was growing. "My seeds won't grow," he said. "What's wrong?" "There's nothing wrong," Mrs. D said. "You just need to be patient, that's all." Brendan noticed that his soil was dry, so he added some water. "Maybe tomorrow they'll grow," he said. Being patient is hard. Waiting is one of the hardest things. I think Brendan is having a hard time with it. 2 weeks passed and still no plants. That Friday afternoon, Mrs. D gathered the DinoFours to say goodbye for the weekend. "I know everyone is hoping our green bean seeds will grow soon," she said. "Especially me," said Brendan. "Yes," said Mrs. D, "especially Brendan. Perhaps we'll see some changes on Monday morning." "I hope so," said Brendan. "And don't forget," Mrs. D said, "Monday is Danielle's birthday. We're going to have a class party to celebrate." Everybody cheered. Then Mrs. D dismissed the children to their parents, grandparents, and babysitters. Brendan looks like he's feeling a little worried that he hasn't had his seeds grow yet. On Monday morning, Brendan was the first to arrive. As usual, he ran to the seed containers. At first, Brendan was happy to see that all the children's seeds had sprouted, but when he compared his container with the others, his mood quickly changed. "My plants are the smallest," he said to himself, "and Joshua's are the biggest. How could that be?" Brendan looks like he's feeling very worried and maybe a little bit sad. Making sure that no one was looking, Brendan switched his name stick with Joshua's. Uh-oh. Now he had the tallest plants and Joshua had the smallest. As the other children arrived, Brendan showed them how the seeds had grown. "See, I told you I would have the tallest plants," he said. Joshua saw that he had the smallest plants. Instead of getting upset, he shrugged his shoulders and walked away. Luckily, Joshua wasn't too upset. But Brendan is feeling very excited. Later that day, the children gathered at the snack table for Danielle's birthday party. "We're having blueberry muffins," Danielle said, pointing to the basket Mrs. D was holding. My mommy and I baked them last night." Mrs. D gave each child a muffin. Brendan noticed that the blueberries on his muffin made a face with a smile. The blueberries made a smiley face. "Look," Brendan said to Tracy, "my muffin has a happy face. It's special." Tracy looked at Brendan's muffin, then back at her own. "My muffin is so plain," she thought. "It's not special like Brendan's." She's feeling the same way Brendan was about the plants. As the children turned their heads to sing happy birthday, to Danielle, Tracy switched her muffin with Brendan's. Uh-oh. When Brendan saw what Tracy had done, he said, "You took my muffin. Give it back." "I'm Danielle's best friend," Tracy said. "I should have the special muffin." "No fair," Brendan shouted. "That muffin is mine." So he is not liking that somebody switched a muffin with his. Then Brendan remembered how he had switched his name stick with Joshua's. "That wasn't fair either," he said to himself. "Mrs. D," Brendan said, "I have something to tell you." Mrs. D walked over to Brendan. Do you think he's going to tell her what he did? "This morning, I saw that Joshua's plants were the biggest and mine were the smallest," he said. "I was sad, so I switched our names. I'm sorry." "Brendan," Mrs. D replied, "I'm a little disappointed about what you did, but I'm very pleased to see how honest you are. Now let's go talk to Joshua." So they're going to try to fix the problem. Brendan apologized to Joshua and sang this song to him. "When I switched our names today, I hoped you wouldn't care. But now I see how bad it feels when things are so unfair." "But now my plants are the smallest ones in the class," Brendan said. "I'm still sad about that." "Maybe they'll catch up later," Joshua said. Do you think they might grow even more? After a while, that's just what happened. So there's the plants when they all got taller, and now they're all as big as each other. Pretty cool.